to the last part.
No.
Let's go to the last part.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
WESN.
Well, a very good morning to you, and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw, and thank you very much for joining us for this edition of the program. This morning, we're starting by speaking about the Agri Expo 2024. Now, it was held under the theme this year, Farm to Table, Revolutionizing the Local Food Supply Chain. Now, that coincides also with CARICOM's vision of trying to reduce food imports to the Caribbean by 25% by 2025. Now, in conversations that we've had previously, that may not be achievable for CARICOM as a whole. In fact, it might be very, very difficult, and at this stage, it seems highly unlikely that that is going to happen. But we do remain optimistic. However, the chances of an individual CARICOM nation being able to achieve such probably far greater, particularly when you look at that of Trinidad and Tobago. TNT has the opportunity, but are we utilizing it? And that is what Agri-Expos tend to showcase, the potential of the sector and what it is we can do or investment opportunities. However, not everyone is happy. There were protests that took place outside the Agri-Expo during the opening over the weekend, and farmers indicated that they were going to continue protesting until it ended, which, by the way, was on Sunday. That being said, where are we heading when we have shows such as the Agri-Expo? What is the end product? What are the results of these expos? How are they beneficial to the agricultural industry, which, according to the Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, accounts for only approximately 5% of our economy anyway? Well, I'm joined this morning by the president of the Sills Farmer Support Group, Mr. Bindra Maharaj, and he's with us virtually, as am I. Good morning, Mr. Maharaj. Welcome to the program.
Morning. Good morning. Good morning. Pleasant good Arima morning to everybody. Thanks for having us.
Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for joining us indeed on the program. Well, as I mentioned, it showcases, the Agri-Expo certainly showcases the potential and investment opportunities. But when we speak about such events, what is it usually, and you speaking as a farmer and also a group that represents farmers, what is the true end result or end product of the expo?
As a farmer and as the president of a group, and we boast of over 8,000 members at this point in time on our database. While, as a farmer, we understand the need for an exposition such as that, what we had. What we found is that a lot of monies was spent, but if the ministry is boasting of over 400 exhibitors, now I want you to be very careful with the words. It's 400 exhibitors, not farmers. It's a big difference. What we saw is that a lot of the ministries, especially the Ministry of Agriculture, they had a lot of space occupied, showing people about forestry and all these things. What we would like to know is was there any benefit for farmers? except, you know, Namdevco having a massive tent with farmers selling products. That is the question. The question is, what is happening? Why can't we deal as a group with the ministry and have at that exposition, you know, some sort of a getting together of maybe the rice farmers, the pineapple farmers, the production, animal husbandry. The issues that farmers are facing were not really dealt with, if you follow what I'm saying. I am saying we did not deal with the issues farmers had. That avenue has not been touched. That avenue is what I am suggesting should have been done. Maybe having the ministry meet with each group. And if the minister and his people have to take some licks, they take the licks. Farmers have grouses. But when you go to an agri-expo like this, what you see is a lot of big business showing their products off. What we didn't see, and what we need to see much more of, is farmers producing a product and as well as the agri-processing of that product. That is the point.
So, Mr. Miraj, if I take a look at the theme, farm to table, revolutionizing the local food supply chain, the argument that you're making is we're focusing a lot on the table, we're focusing a lot on the end products, because you did mention the importance of not mixing up the terms exhibitors and farmers. There is a huge difference. So we're focusing a lot on the end product, but we're not necessarily focusing on the root, which is the farmers and farmlands in Trinidad and Tobago. Is that something that you think is constantly being ignored or misunderstood?
The correct word is misunderstood? No. I think disrespected. The word we are looking for is disrespecting farmers. Now, let's take one situation. We have a situation right now where rice farmers are complaining. We know that. It's all over. But what I can say is that I know for a fact that the ministry has a coordinator trying to bring this problem, to bear. They're trying to bring it out there. But what I am saying is this. If you do not sort the problem out at the root of the canal, right down to the ground, and I say ground literally, if you do not go to the pineapple farmers in Moruga and talk to that association and say, listen, what is your problem? How can we help? That is all farmers looking for. Rice farmers recently one rice farmer lost about nearly 30 acres of rice. You know why? I'll tell you why. He was pumping water. There was rice. Come on. What's a need to know and understand they can't be treating farmers like this? He's pumping water from a ravine, not the Caroni River. They went and they took the man pump and they took him to court. Now, at the end of it all, they apologized and they said, well, we made an error. But the man crop is lost. His rice crop is lost. This happened recently. The thing about it is, this is what farmers want to talk about. These issues. Why it is farmers must be during the dry season or the drought we just had, have a problem taking water with their pumps in their fields to feed the nation, and WASA wants to seize your pumps and stop you from planting. How can we feed a nation if we don't plant? That's the critical factor. How can farmers in Moruga who are planting pineapple and sugarloaf pineapple, what are they going to do? With the dry season, the pine is not as big as it usually would be. But we have no processing here. That is what the expo should be doing. Bringing that kind of end product.
Well, Mr. Miraj, I think before we continue any further, I think it'd be best if you describe the development or the stagnation or the decline, however the experience has been, of the agricultural industry over the last few years? Have you seen at all any sort of concrete efforts, any sort of concrete improvements to the agricultural industry where we are revolutionizing our local food supply chain?
Some changes are coming, but it's coming too slow. For instance, I know for a fact that I spoke in detail to rice farmers, and I know some changes are coming. But do you know we only have 15 rice farmers in this country right now who are willing to go back into rice production? But you know what the issues are? The issues are some of the issues in the rice production. One, you have farmers who took loans over the last couple of years and still paying those loans, and the rice industry was actually at a lull. One, because the end producer, the end buyer, was not paying on time. They were paying months and months after, right? So you have one government user of rice, packaging, producing the rice, selling it to the supermarkets and so, not paying the farmers on time, but yet the farmers have to go to the other government user, which is the ADB, to pay their loans. So they're not getting money from one end, but they have to find money to pay their loans at the other end. Now, that is what created a major shutting the door in the rice industry. The amount of rice we import into this country, we as farmers in this country can produce over nearly 50% of the rice we import. You know that, right? We can. Because you have farmers who can at least produce, some people have 250 acres, 300 acres, 200 acres, and they can do it. The issue is that now, the machinery that they bought with the loans from ADB, which they're still paying, and because of high interest, they're still paying over the last 6 years, from now, 6 years ago to now, they're still paying. The machinery was mothballed, and you know what is happening? They have to spend money now, and they don't have that money to repair the machines to at least, harvest the crop. So you're going back to another issue. Right now, farmers are waiting to plant rice. But you know what? They have to wait until September to get the seeds to come into the country. So you have farmers who have prepped land on the assumption that there were seeds available. They have to keep cutting that land, paying money to keep cutting the land, keeping it good until the seeds come in. You know what cost is that? There's a cost to doing all of this. And people don't understand that farmers have costs involved, what you call the soft costs, to produce their product.
Let me ask you, one of the things that we have, it's been promoted constantly over the last 4 years in particular. It stemmed a lot from the COVID-19 pandemic, was producing local, consuming local. So we've often heard of eat what you grow what you eat. And it's also something that has really been pushed by the Ministry of Health, not just the Ministry of Agriculture. It's also been pushed by the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service. I'm curious to know if such campaigns have in any way actually lent some level of assistance to farmers. There's been a constant push to promote local products. Has that been beneficial at all to farmers?
It has been beneficial as long as you can do it privately. As long as you can find the funds and the source to do it, yes. We have started, our group, we have started a program of working with youths. And what they're doing now, working with youths, that we have started that since about 2 years. We have a youth program in our group, right? We have over nearly, 1,200 youths working with us. And also, we have also a program where we have single mothers with children. And what we have encouraged them to do is to do a backyard garden or pot, what you call pot gardening. And they now can come into our market on a Saturday and sell their excess products. And it is successful. We are seeing a change with these mothers, with their children. It is working. But you see, I'll tell you something. While we can try and keep the prices of goods down in our market on a Saturday, that doesn't mean to say we alone can do it. We have been doing this on our own without any assistance. Whatever we do it on our own. Sometimes we have to fund it out of our pockets. Sometimes whatever we make, we make. And let me tell you something. By trying to keep and feed people, yes, plant and eat what you plant. I understand that. I associate with it. The problem is how much people will appreciate what the farmer has to go through. Why haven't we at least started thinking about, since we have started this program, started talking about an issue where we can encourage backyard gardening? That would be a way to partly solve the problem of feeding ourselves, according to what you are saying, of what the Ministry of Health said, plant and eat what you grow. So that will be one way of doing it. Now we can come up with solutions, but to implement those solutions will cost. It will cost. We don't have that funding to do that.
Well, that brings me back to the point of funding, as you just mentioned. I asked you that question because this is something that we as Trinbagonians are constantly exposed to. Grow what you eat, eat what you grow. This constant promotion of local products, particularly agricultural products. But it comes back to the other points of assistance. Once you have these promotion campaigns, the assistance that the government often speaks of, for example, coming back to your point of having to get money to try and repair the equipment, the government subventions, government grants, and facilities that have been made available or the government speaks about quite often, is that still working for farmers in TNT? Even in respect to lease for land, is that a smooth process? Has it still been functional enough where farmers can at least make that work for them, or they're finding difficulties there as well?
Okay, our group, this group we are handling, have been working with our members to try and access grants. Let me tell you something. Accessing grants is like pulling teeth in this country. It is the most difficult thing. Some farmers, some people will get it, but not enough to encourage farmers to get into whether it's, okay, let me just draw some examples to you. We have a member who was planting pimentos. And I always use her as an example. She didn't know what to do with the excess pimentos. We encouraged her to buy a dehydrator, and she's now making pimento flakes. And she's selling to the groceries. She has an export market. We have another person who, the inventor of the Karaili rings, who did well. She did very well. She was exposed at the expo, and this is what I'm thankful for, right? She also is doing, she's doing a lot of other things. So, but the Karaili rings and her seasonings and so, that is what she's good at. She's now having a market. She's now having a place. She's now finding, her sales, and so she's getting her markets now going. The point I'm making to you is, these are the people who should be getting a grant. The agro processors, the people who plant Karaili and can do something with it. This lady is planting Dashin bush, and she's making Sahina and freezing it and selling it to supermarkets. Trying to get a grant to help these people, it is the most difficult thing. We actually have to go to Republic Bank and other banks to try and help them, because ADB is not the farmer-friendly bank. We have an artificial insemination program going on right now, privately, because you now have a company who is a member of our group doing farmers' cows, and we can now inseminate. And I'm not talking about just, I'm talking about the machines, proper mechanic machines that actually doing the insemination, making sure it's working properly. And what happens? You're actually seeing the whole thing going on the camera while it is being done. And the thing about it is that these people have to fund it themselves. We have to get private people to assist them to bring the semen in, to bring the pregnancy strips, do the ultrasound. This is what we have. And we went to the ministry, we showed them the product, and you know what? We have not even heard from them to say, okay, look, let us partner with you. Because we have a small stock of animals in the country, and we need to increase the breeding stock. So this project we have can either do meat production or milk production. We can inseminate animals to do either which one. These are the issues we are having that, you know, we should be partnering with. We are saying that our people who sell in our market on a Saturday, right? We are only farmers. We only allow farmers to sell in our market. That's why we can sell the prices that we have now. And we can keep the prices where we are. But for a farmer to get a grant, it is a very difficult thing. Now, let's be realistic. For a farmer to get a grant, he has to sit down and do a lot of paperwork. Plenty. I can tell you because I have been trying to get a grant myself to do some cocoa rehabilitation. When I sent my documents and it's lost. After 2 years, they tell me I have to redo it. After 2 years. The point I'm making to you is, when you look at what farmers have to go through, land tenure is a major issue. Mm-hmm. It's a major issue. We have written the permanent secretary and said, Mr. Permanent Secretary, can you allow farmers who are getting, there are certain areas in Trinidad, like the Caroni area, who can get a 1-year farmer badge because they're not on lands that are acidified. They don't have land tenure. So it could be lands that are leased. It could be lands that are stepped down from generation to generation. It could be squatters. But some squatters in this country allow for over 70% of the food we eat. Squatters, that is. The squatting population of farmers account for 70% of the food that we have in the markets. And this survey was done by our statistician, Dr. Ian Ford from UTT. So to get a farmer's badge, even though a 1-year badge, for a farmer to get a subsidy, whether it's on a whacker, any kind of equipment, a 50% back rebate from the ministry, you have to have a farmer's badge, whether it's a 1-year badge or a permanent badge. How many farmers who do not have land tenure can get a farmer's badge? Likewise, the rice farmers, most of the rice farmers, they are on lease land. They're on Caroni land without lease.
Wow. Mr. Miraj, I think oftentimes one of the responses that we hear is, well, a lot of these farmers are not registered, or they're not going through the registration process. They're not doing what is required of them. And that's, you know, it coincides with what you've just mentioned in respect to accessing grants, getting farmers' badges, even in respect to land tenure. And a new registration data management system was launched as part of this Agri Expo. But even, do you expect it to, we don't know it as yet. We don't know what the entire process is as yet. It was just launched, so it's very hard to give an analysis. But even in respect to registering farmers, could you please speak to that experience now?
Listen, that's a very simple thing, you know. The model at the Konopia, when in Caroni there, where the ministry has its office, the model is there. They have over 8,600 registered farmers in Caroni. And I'm sure if you go to Wallerfield and you go to Whiteland, where in South, wherever, you have a list of registered farmers. It's there. It's nothing, there's no secret. Farmers are willing to go and get a farmer's badge. But the problem is also, let me tell you, and I want to make it absolutely clear. Farmers themselves need to get up and smell the coffee. I am not making any bones about it. You know, I'll give you an example. We got a farmer, we had a farmer who is on lease land. He is in Barrackpore. Our office is in Caroni. He pays $20 a year for our group, this group. That's all he pays. Annual fee. To get his farmer's badge, which he has been trying for years, we were able to get it. We asked him, I said, listen, can you come up to the office? You'll sign the documents. We will get the badge to, you know, this, whichever area you're in. We'll get it for you. He said, but I'm paying $20. I'm not leaving my farm to come up at Caroni. I said, but it's your badge we're getting. You will benefit. So for his $20, he wants us to leave where we are, to come to him, to sign the documents, to go and drop it in the office for him. That is what farmers are, and that is not only one. That's only one example. We have had many, many more. Farmers just, you know, they are accustomed to one way, which is I get up, go in the garden early, come home, go back in the evening, and that's it. That's their day. They're accustomed to that. They don't want to take the time to assist us to assist them. That's one problem. I am telling you it's a problem. So we need to know, as farmers, we need to get our act together too. We just can't be blaming the ministry. We need to get together. We have over 75 groups in this country, right? And we are trying now to talk to them, to get them together so we can now get one head. And that is what we are doing. We have been able to talk to the rice farmers. We are talking to the pineapple farmers. And we are talking to, look, as a matter of fact, right now, because of the artificial insemination program, which we are doing ourselves, we are not getting any assistance from ADB. We now have to go to another bank, a local bank, to try and help these people. You know, ADB needs to get their act together. They need to be farmer friendly.
Mr. Maraj, you know, throughout the course of this interview, you have highlighted through your responses the significant potential that exists in respect to agriculture here in TNT. And whilst I'm saying it's not something that I'm unfamiliar with, there are many viewers who are not necessarily aware of that significant potential. How do we now get to a point where we realize that potential and we are able to harness our full potential? Let's speak about solutions now. How can we get to that point where instead of speaking about, well, we could be doing this, to say we are doing this?
Simple. We have solutions. We have been giving solutions. We have been giving solutions, but nobody's taking us on. That's the problem. Now,
why do you think nobody's been taking you on? Why do you think that there's been
politics,
an ignorance to the plight of farmers?
We need to take politics out of farming, out of agriculture. That's what we need to do in the first place. You can't have a government who has a plan, but we as farmers don't know what the plan is. We need to know. Maybe, and I'm saying maybe, okay, maybe they don't recognize our group because we are an NGO. But the relevant authority who should be talking to farmers, they are not. That's the problem. The relevant authority who is recognized by the ministry, they're not dealing with farmers in the right way. That's the issue. There is a communication problem from the ministry, the information, and where it has to go. That's one. We have to talk about what we need to do and when we need to do, and we need to put timelines in place, right? If we are producing, and I keep talking about rice, I'm talking about sugar, right? If And I heard the Prime Minister talk about a company from India coming to help or partner with the rice and so in Trinidad. Can I just ask one stupid question? Where is the production going to come from? You can bring how much people from India here. Where is the production going to come from? Aren't you going to have to go back to these farmers? If we are talking about doing something with sugarcane, we still have a lot of sugarcane. The factory is gone. If you bring a factory from wherever, whatever part of the world, and you start to do sachets, which is the little packs that you get in the hotels, those little packs that you use, that's all you need to do. Because the hotel industry in Trinidad and Tobago will take all that you can produce. Not even taking into consideration the hotel industry up the islands. We're not talking about that. So that is one. So you talk about rice, you talk about sugar. Let's talk about cassava. We in Trinidad lost a valuable opportunity. The production of cassava flour. It has gone to Guyana. We lost it. You know why? The ease of doing business in Trinidad is so ridiculously high that it was frustrating. There needs to be somewhere that if somebody has an opportunity like this, again, they were talking to us about getting the production of cassava, and we started it. Do you realize the price of cassava right now? Because there's going to be a glut in the market very soon. Because of that. Now, we have to think differently. The amount of cassava flour that will be coming back to Trinidad from Guyana, we in Trinidad have to send cassava to Guyana very shortly to get that factory going. Because Guyana cannot produce enough of cassava to satisfy the demands of the factory. We have been hankering, we have been talking and begging for some sort of a communication with the pineapple farmers in Moruga. We produce sugarloaf pineapple in this country, yet we do not have a plant to downstream that product. Our farmers have to actually go in the market and the side of the road and sell pine for $3 and $4 and $5. When we can be forming, we should have formed a cooperative or a partnership with a company that can produce pineapple juice, pineapple chunks, pineapple slices, pineapple jam, and the skin after you produce the juice. What we are suggesting is that it can be used for animal fodder, for feeding animals, cows, goats, sheep, whatever have you. Listen, the solutions are there, they're too simple. The issues are not complicated. What we need to do is to have, like in the Agri Expo, what we should have done, what the ministry should have done, right, is to have a booth, an area where farmers can come and sit down and chat and say, listen, I can't get my grant. Why it is I can't get my food, my farmer's badge? Tell me what I could do. Advise me. You know what I mean? Give me a name and a number. How do I go about doing this? This is what we need to do. We need to encourage farmers by giving them some little hand. Give them a hand up. Not a handout, a hand up. Tell me how I can get my grant. Why it is, right, I have to pay so much of chemicals. Why am I not getting a subsidy on it? If I'm planting rice, can I put talipir or cascadoo in the rice water?
Yeah.
Can I plant cassava around? This is what I'm talking about. So, you know, it's so much. It's just too much.
Well, Ms. Maraja, I know that, as I said, you've spoken quite extensively to the potential of the industry, the potential that exists. So I do very much understand your frustrations. Something you mentioned which hit my mind, though, when you spoke about a glut in the market for cassava, for example. I think that's already started. I mean, I was in Central and South Trinidad over the course of the weekend, and the amount of cassava that is being sold on the roadside by farmers who park their vans and trucks. And unfortunately, I hope it doesn't all go to waste. I think that blood has already started.
You
but
realize the price you're paying for it also?
I actually,
pounds for $20?
I didn't, you see, that's the thing. The amount of cassava, I didn't even look at the price. I didn't even see the price. You just pass it on the road and he's like, oh, what's going on? Truck after truck of cassava.
Because you see, we encourage the farmers to get into cassava production for two reasons. One, the production of cassava flour and cassava logs. We have a person in Trinidad who is doing cassava logs, which is they cleaning the cassava and they blast freezing the cassava and packaging to sell to supermarkets. But there's only so much they can do. The real potential is the cassava flour.
Which
we're just going to come back to NFM, eh?
Well, this is the thing. We've been speaking about cassava flour and cassava fries as alternatives. It's going to help in respect to health, but also reduce our reliance on imports.
Correct.
So again, Mr. Murray, this is the thing. It's nothing that's unfamiliar. We've been hearing about this for quite some time, which is why I think it's very important that we have these conversations as we have this morning. Thank you very much for joining me on the program. Thank you very much for taking the time. And we've gone overboard in respect to our time this morning, but it was very, very important that we had this extensive conversation. So
thank you very much for having me.
I do hope that when we speak again in the not too distant future, there may be some better news.
I hope so myself. And thank you for having the president of the Sills Farmers here with you this morning. And have a great day, my friend.
You too, sir. All the very best. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Bindra Miraj joining me on the program this morning. It baffles me, ladies and gentlemen, of what TNT has, what we have to offer, what we are capable of doing, and something such as feeding ourselves. And it's spoken about time after time after time. The unfortunate thing is, agriculture is not taken seriously here in TNT. Farming, in particular, is not taken seriously here in TNT. Will we ever see those days again when Tobago could have fed itself and Trinidad? Would we ever see such a reliance on food importation? And it's not just even from international markets, it's from within the regional markets as well. Would we ever see that actually decline in favor for our local farming production? I don't know. But I can only hope, as I've always said. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break on the program. We will return shortly.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
focusing on agriculture and the potential that exists. And I'm continuing with that overarching theme, the potential that exists, because we're shifting gears away from agriculture and we're focusing on the human resource, particularly the future of Trinidad and Tobago. And we have been advocating, and when I say we, I'm not talking about AM Prime or WESN in particular, I'm talking about TNT has been advocating and been pushing. We're hearing their voices to try and get youth, steer them away from a life of crime, steer them out of that society or that mentality. There's a glorification of crime, there's a glorification of criminals, and it's happening. Well, I suppose the correct jargon to be using is alleged criminals at this point, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want to get myself in trouble with the law, but you do understand the points I'm making. So let's speak to one individual who has been advocating so fiercely for young people here in TNT, and not just advocating, but has also established a foundation, has established a program to try and help the young people harness their full potential. Please welcome me, and please join me in welcoming the Chief Executive Officer of the Roots Foundation of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Mtima Solowazi. Good morning, sir, and welcome to AM Prime.
Good morning, and thank you for having me, and pleasant good morning to your viewers and those who are probably listening online worldwide on your stream and stuff like that.
Indeed, sir. Well, thank you very much for joining me on the program. You're very much familiar to WES, and you've been on this platform many a times before. But Mr. Solowazi, thank you indeed for joining us. And I want to start, though, by speaking a bit more to who you are and a bit about your background, because you have quite an interesting history. You yourself faced a lot of not so good, a lot of negative. You yourself were involved in a lot of negative and practiced a lot of negative, but you found your way through. You haven't been afraid to speak about your past, and you've also put that into context in trying to show young people exactly, what they can do or how they can get out of it. So let's start by speaking more about who you are and your background.
Okay, well, as mentioned, I am Mtima Solowazi, the founder of the Oral Tradition Roots Foundation. It's an NGO where we focus on using the oral traditions with an emphasis on spoken word poetry as a catalyst for social change. Now, as cliche as this may sound, we actually give young persons that space. And when we say space, a safe space, and we don't just use words because they sound nice and fancy. We actually create a safe space where young persons can express their lived experiences and social realities, right? So we have been around since 2005. That's when the foundation, well, we started as a newsletter, but the foundation started in 2009 because I realized there was more we can do, right? A bit about me, I have had a somewhat challenging youth growing up. I've seen violence literally on our doorsteps, lived Belmont, right, on Leon Hill, grew up on Belmont on Leon Hill, then moved to Maloney Gardens. And due to circumstances, I have probably gotten involved in activities that may not be so pleasant to some of your listeners. And hence that is why I really dedicated my life, because why I was given a chance. I have spoken to former commissioners of police in the past, and in particular one when I told him, stop calling people cockroaches, right? You cannot, and I use the term, you cannot refer to us as a cockroach, because based on your definition, then probably I was a cockroach, right? And when you label persons, and we know about all these theories, labeling theory, this theory, that theory, you alienate persons, right? They don't feel as they are part of this society, right? And for me, I was given many opportunities which I took, right? And one such major opportunity, a turning point in my life, was attending Serval, right on the Beetham Gardens. And that was where my life started to turn around, because why? I had a space to speak. You know, the adolescent development program is about speaking, so I had a chance, and I could talk. I like to talk, right? To talk and share my experience. And then I was doing public speaking with Mr. Alderson Josiah. So now, you're not just speaking, you're writing. You know, writing down your ideas, writing down your feelings. So that model is really what stayed with me, and I've been using that within my organization. Another major turning point is I became Muslim. And based on what people see on YouTube and all these different numbers being called now, 6, 7, 8, 9, I say, how Islam changed you? Yes, because it gave me now a true purpose in life, that I am not just a cow to eat grass, give milk, and then be slaughtered for meat, right? I have a purpose where I could serve humanity or serve God through the service of humanity, right? And with those two things is what I built my organization around. A lot of young persons working with me between 20 and 27 years old, and I give them that opportunity to lead. I give them that opportunity to share their voice. And you know, we do a lot of work. We go into places where people will tell you, don't go. Places that making advisories for foreigners, don't visit, right? We engage with schools that are labeled high-risk schools, right? And, you know, I have so much to share with you all. I know this time is limited because we try to address huge...
I would encourage you to share it with us. Time is with us this morning.
You know, so, yeah, so that's basically who I am, what I've been doing for the past many years. You know, up to last weekend, I met a colleague of mine, right? We were doing work 30 years ago, and I was telling our next colleague, I said, ask this guy how long we working on the field. And the guy said, about 30 years now. So it is 30 years on the ground, not behind a laptop.
You know what you've spoken about is the power of words and the power that voices have. You've also spoken about the power of faith, which we will get into later on. Before I dive into those two particular topics, though, given that you were once deemed an at-risk youth, but now you've turned your life around and you're working with at-risk youth. You're working or you're advocating on behalf of at-risk youth. Do you ever find it difficult to speak about your circumstances? You seem to be quite open this morning. Is that something that is challenging for you to do quite often?
So in the past, I had some hang-ups because my uncle told me years ago, I was about 17 years old, and he said, Trinidadians are deep sea divers. I said, Uncle, what do you mean? We like to dig up people's past. Yeah, so we like to go down in the ocean and find out things about people and like use it against you. So I used to try to be invisible about my past in the earlies. And then, you know, you'll go to workshops and persons will ask you, if you could have spoken to your 16-year-old self, what advice would you give your 16-year-old self? And I said, live your life. Because I realized the experiences I had or what I went through during those years helped shape who I am today, right? So, for example, whilst working Serval, I heard someone say that you could get into university as an adult student. I said, what does that mean? Right? So I inquired and I got into open, which is now open campus, right? The School of Continuing Studies. Whilst there, I heard you could get matriculation. Now, remember, I had no experience in academics. I left school with 4 basic subjects in 1988. And we have to understand and put this into context, Trinidad and Tobago and the world. Back then, it's only a thing until about 1996, when they made a 3, a pass. But back then, and then a general 3. Back then, it's a general and basic. So a basic 1, you performed at your best in basic. A basic 1 was equivalent to a general 3. So even if you had a 1 in basic, there's nothing. You have nothing to show. I got a 3, which would have been a 5. When you get a 5 in general, you tell your friends the dog eat your results. You can't find it. You're ashamed, right? So we have been setting us up from long time, you know. That now youth being set up, you know. We have been set up from a long time. So I was not a correct education. I didn't care about academics. But going to school helped me to develop or grasp the concept of who am I. So I decided to go back to school. At UWI, I did psychology major, right? I wanted to do a double major, psych and source. I was getting licks because, again, this is something new to me.
Yeah.
It's only when I did my minor in source and criminology that I started to shine in the criminology class, because I'm the only person in the class who knows about crime and police and my lowest mark was an A. It's only A+. Yeah. So if I didn't have I'm not advocating here, get involved in a life of crime and go and do criminology as a degree. No. That was my past. It's only until I embrace my past and realize, hey boy, Mtima, that is who helping you be you today. Hit them for 6 in criminology, right? So my past helped me to do what I'm doing today, right? I go into any community, right? I engage with young men and young women, with the community and the whole, right? And as I've been told by some young men in certain communities, your eyes see it different. I don't know what that means. I tell them in my heart, thanks, you know.
Well, Mr. Solwas, we're going to pause on that particular point. We have a lot more to get into this morning as we focus on community development, yes, particularly in respect to steering young people away from a life of crime. But I thought the foundation for this conversation was to understand, that you were once in that position, you are out of it, So let's take a quick break here on the program, and when we return, we're going to continue with this conversation. Stay with us.
Here is your WESN News on the hour. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Steel plant to replace Columbus's ships. 3 held with stolen construction materials. 4 killed in violent weekend across East Trinidad. And internationally, UK tech tycoon among missing after yacht sinks. Now for the details. The Prime Minister says as Trinidad and Tobago removes the vestiges of colonialism, the national instrument will replace Columbus's ships on the National Coat of Arms. Rowley made the announcement at a special PNM Party convention held at the National Academy of the Performing Arts on August 18th to consider the report of the party's Constitution Review Committee. The convention erupted in applause as Rowley made the announcement of the change. which he said would be done before Republic Day. The steel pan was named the national instrument after the National Musical Instrument Act 2024 was passed last month. You see the 3 Columbus boats on the emblem, they will go. He said the government has enough votes in Parliament to make the change and intends to deal with the issue soon after the reopening of the new parliamentary session. 3 men were arrested and a quantity of stolen construction materials recovered during an anti-crime exercise conducted in the Arima district on Thursday, the 15th of August 2024. A joint exercise was conducted between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. on August 15th by officers of the National Operations Task Force and Arima Criminal Investigations Department, based on information regarding alleged gang activities in the Arima district. As a result, officers intercepted a blue Isuzu pickup truck with a quantity of construction equipment and 3 male occupants. The 3 suspects, ages 22 to 30, all of Arima, were arrested in connection with the find. Investigations later revealed that the materials were allegedly removed from a compound owned by a contractor. The victim subsequently positively identified the material as belonging to him. Investigations are ongoing. 4 people were killed in separate incidents across East Trinidad between August 17th and 18th, marking a violent weekend. Early Sunday morning, 2 men identified as Lucas and Salandi were gunned down on the Boodoo Highway in Sandy Grande. Residents heard gunshots around 3 a.m. and discovered both men lying in pools of blood. Despite efforts from police and paramedics, they succumbed to their injuries. Around 2 hours earlier in Valencia, a private hire driver, 46-year-old David Best, was shot dead on Kangali Street. 2 others, a 41-year-old man and a 30-year-old woman, were injured in the attack. The assailants, dressed in what appeared to be police and TNT regiment uniforms, opened fire on a group attending a wake before fleeing the scene. In a third incident on Saturday evening, the bullet-riddled body of 35-year-old Jamil James was discovered in bushes off Westmore Road, Mova. His vehicle was found nearby, also riddled with bullets. Police are investigating all 3 incidents but have yet to establish a motive. Internationally, British tech tycoon Mike Lynch is among the 6 people missing after a luxury yacht sank off the coast of Sicily in the early hours of Monday morning. The 56-meter vessel was carrying 22 people, 10 crew and 12 passengers, including British, American and Canadian nationals. Emergency services rescued 15 people, including a 1-year-old British girl. Local media reported the yacht sank after encountering a heavy storm overnight that caused water spouts, or rotating columns of air, to appear over the sea. Mr. Lynch, known by some as the British Bill Gates, co-founded software company Autonomy, which was later bought by tech giant Hewlett-Packard for $11 billion. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi Macnish. Thanks for watching.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Thank you very much for being with us this morning, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue the conversation. My guest in 1988 left school with 4 basic level CSEC subjects. He's a postgraduate student of the University of Tobago in
University of West Indies.
Yeah. University of the West Indies, my sincerest apologies. Thank you very much for correcting me, sir. And an individual who has won a number of community awards for his work and his for continued advocacy of at-risk youth here in TNT. So, Mr. Solowazi, we have an understanding of your story, and you spoke about the power of words and the power of faith, and I want to get into that. But the question that is often asked is, how are we failing youth in TNT? Why are we failing young people in TNT? And I often get various responses. But given your experience, how you grew up, how you overcame those struggles, and the work that you're doing now with young people, what would you define as an at-risk youth in Trinidad and Tobago in 2024?
So our organization, we have sort of moved away from that concept of at-risk. That terminology, just using at-risk by itself, because unfortunately, when they define at-risk youth, they look like me, from a single parent, from a quote-unquote hotspot community. So it's sort of like you're just labeling one demographic, one group of persons. So we have decided to use the term vulnerable youth in at-risk circumstances, because we realize that based on the situations that these young persons have been placed in, they become very vulnerable, which make them at risk to crime or drugs. And a very, very good example of vulnerable youth in at-risk circumstances, and I will always call his name, is Oswald Babulal. So I too was young when that tragic incident took place with his family, and I think the society failed him. So if you want to speak about failing the youth, the society would have failed Oswald Babulal. And look at the situation today, right? He was a child, he was a young boy when that incident took place. And, the state have to let me know what was put in place to deal with that trauma that child would have experienced that night and prior to that night, because the family, based on the news report and the evidence of were involved in these nefarious activities. So this child in this house will have been seeing a lot of violence throughout probably his whole life, right? So that is our definition of vulnerable youth in at-risk circumstances. And then we also use a term that was coined by the Obama administration to describe opportunity youth, right? Now for us, our vulnerable youth in at-risk circumstances is between 7 and 15. But according to the Obama administration, an opportunity youth is between 16 to 24. They're not in school, they're not employed, but they want to make a difference in the community. And if you don't have those tools of education and employment, and you want to make a difference in the society, then you will end up most likely doing crime, either selling drugs or robberies, because you want to give back to society. And why do these young people want to give back to the society? Because basic amenities are not being met. I live in Belmont, grew up in Belmont, bring water for almost all my life. People say, you just play football? I say, no, I bring water. My calf's big since I'm small, right? I can't kick a ball to save my life. And going back in Belmont, if I go back Belmont this morning, they still have no water, right? Why is that a problem to give a community a proper supply of water? And that is not attacking the Ministry of Utilities. That is a reality in a lot of these communities, right? So when you grow up under these conditions, right, you feel as though, then I belong to Trinidad and Tobago, no? This one have this, that one have that. I have nothing, right? So these young people, they grow up in a perpetual state of trauma, where there's violence in the home. So some homes may not have violence, but there's violence in the community. And when we speak about violence in the community, it's not just about youth against youth, We have state violence too. Because some, not all of TTPS, but they can't deny. That is why a lot of them always before the court on the charges or investigations. Why do you have a certain attitude when they enter certain communities? As simple as saying, good morning. good evening is void, right? So you want to work with the communities, and again, this is not an attack on the TTPS because we work very closely with the TTPS, but in particular, the hearts and minds of the interagency task force, right? And their approach is amazing because they get the community to speak with them. They get the same young men to trust them, right? And you grow up here and you don't trust the Babylon system, the police is Babylon, fight down the Babylon, but yet still that group of police officers have built trust in the community, right? So just to talk about at risk is many factors, right? Because I, quote unquote, using that label, was labeled at risk when I went to be enrolled in Silval at age 20. And Silval was from 16 to 19, but I got a chance still at that time at age 20. And a government counselor wrote a letter for me. And the letter said, help this young man, he is at risk. Right? And so there are so many factors to unpack to say how we define in this youth.
You said something there that you know, hit a spot. You said we're not making these young people don't feel as though they're a part of Trinidad and Tobago.
Of course.
Yeah.
Listen to me. I was recently asked to give my comment to an interview. It was in the newspapers. And it's a fact. Let me tell you something. We work in schools and we ask specifically for a certain demographic of students. We ask. We don't want the privets. We don't want the ones who come into school every day. Then how you doing the program if they don't come to school every day? You might be surprised. When the program starts, they will come every day. Right? We ask for those who fighting, those who on repeated suspensions. Because I know for a fact, people don't like to be embarrassed. So, meaning that a school may be invited to a program. Let's say you invite the school to a program and you have persons who have been involved in crime, a life of crime in the past, you know, who have reformed their lives to talk to these young people. Here, Miss and Sir, hello, you see you, Kijan, you staying in school, you're not embarrassing me today. But you see one that need that intervention. So you leave back those students because they will embarrass you, right? And you carry students who perform well in school, who have parental support, who have no inclination to be involved in any sort of misbehavior in school. How would that benefit in them, right? So when you leave back those students in school, would they feel as though they are part of the school? When you have a program, right now, I really admire the Ministry of Youth Development for all these programs that they have out. But I would really like to I would like to see how it is really rolled out if those guys and those girls who I believe those programs are intended for are actually reaching those programs, or the programs are actually reaching them. I know the Ministry of Sport and Community Development have a program called Empower, and that target audience, yeah, I am a part of that program. I see them. I know them. So she have managed to reach that group, right? But we have to reach them and make them feel as though, hey, this is not just for you, you know, because we feel like you're in trouble. This is for you because we want to help you improve your life. And we always have this caveat for our young people: give back. You have to give back to either your school or your community.
So I wonder if this is a much bigger problem than we truly understand, because the argument that you're making in suggesting that we are not making young people feel as though they are a part of society, or recognizing, you know, in respect to social structures, the role youth have to play. You think that is why a lot of young people may tend to shift more to gang culture or gang affiliation because they feel they are a part of something, because they feel as though they have a purpose?
Number one, Mr. List showed us that in his interviews. We heard those young men speak. Right? Let us unpack this thing real carefully here today.
Mm-hmm.
All we saw, all some of us saw, was the big guns. Oh, they're walking into the guns. Did we really hear what they were saying?
Oh, voices.
Did we really hear the pain in some of these young men's voice? You know? It's really hard to remove the sight of a gun in your face to listen to what the person have to say. But that's how they feel strong, the gun in their hand. But listen to them. They're crying out. We don't hear the cries. Let me tell you what a gang does really give young people. And not to quote all these theories and them, but they give them a sense of belonging. Eh? We know that. That basic theories, a sense of belonging. It gives them a sense. I always give this example. You're outside playing football. So both of us are siblings. Mommy put out food on the table. For both of us, and have chicken in the plate. For both of us, all they coming for the food. I say, just mommy, the sweat going good. You go on in, eat your food. I eat my chicken. I eat my chicken. When I come inside now, my chicken and my plate gone. You're supposed to, and you like sweat more than food? That will never happen on our block. Let me show you something. They'll be smoking a joint. Any amount of them. That joint will come down to a funk. And a man saying, hey, you can still get a drag. It will come down to a nut. Now somebody say, are you making an analogy between food and drugs? I'm making an analogy between somebody sharing. You stole my meat, eh? You stole my meat, boss. So you're a thief, right? I'm making an analogy of somebody sharing and making sure everybody still gets something. You could put $1 in a pot on the block and eat 2 pieces of chicken, 2 pieces of fish, and you only put $1. Eating the same amount as everybody else. Because people make sure you have. I passed a certain community night before. And when I was leaving, one of the leaders in the community, he said, drive safely, reach home safe. And I smiled, boy. I say, wow. Look what that man saying, drive safely. Because look at, you have a lot of road accidents. And then reach home safe. Right? So, we have to understand that dynamics that takes place on that block. And how now do we engage them and present what we have for them that will benefit the society. Because once you get these young men, in particular the young men, girls to it, because we see what happening right now, but once you get these young men in order, half the work finished, you know. There are some other things to deal with that I'm telling you is a lot to unpack, because we can't have people who are supposed to enforce the law or protect and serve with pride engaging in nefarious activities also. So that is a whole different conversation, right? Then somebody say, oh, what were the borders? I'm not dealing with the borders. I'm dealing with on the street. How do we get these young men and women to feel I am a part of this society? Because this is for me, not because I give in trouble. You can't when we bring a program in our school and the students come into the class, first thing they do, they watch around. But sir, there's a class of troublemakers. My response is, are you a troublemaker? I don't really get trouble. And then why you feel there's a class of troublemaker? Because they look around and they see people who get in trouble. But when the program starts, they realize, nah boy, they're not really about getting trouble, you know. It's about me, you know. And they stay, they enjoy the program. So we have to make them feel as though you are part of this school, We are part of this this community. We are part of this country.
Are their voices often lost? You know, as I said, the power of voices and the power.
Yes. And all you want to know is where Christmas this went and who we talked to. We want to know what them fellas was saying, you know.
Yeah.
There was one video where the guy talked about, you know, if there is some opportunity to go put on a gun. You know, did we hear that? Or we saw the gun in his hands when he said, I'll put down my gun. Ooh, look at that big gun. Did we hear he said, if opportunities come to us, and then somebody might go, boy, empty my boy, that's just talk. Opportunities just come to them and they don't put on the gun. We're not talking about getting them a box drain to fix it. We're not talking about making them control government contracts, you know. Right? You'll buy more guns. Let me be real. We're talking about engaging them in life management skills. And they want those things, you know. They want to know how to articulate themselves properly. I watch when this young man survived a gun attack on the highway. He got a lot of interviews all outside the country. And I watch most of the interviews. And I say, oh boy. You know, he could sing, but he can't speak. You know? But not him alone. I watch athletes, some athletes, you know, well good athletes, but they can't give a proper interview. Right? So those basic, simple things will make a person feel empowered. And that's why we use this spoken word poetry. Because when they write how they feel, it's like, yeah, boy, I write that.
Tell me about the success of your program and the success that you've experienced through your program.
So when we engage young people, so we had so last week we had our Cascadoo Spoken Word Festival. We celebrate 12 years of this festival. Every year we go to St. Jude's School for Girls, and which was YTC, which is now YTRC, right? Whilst you at YTRC, and we told them to, you know, we did our introduction, engage them in literary devices and stuff like that. We told them, it's time to write now. One time. So I can't spell. So I can't. Say, hey, we're not on that. They know the English exam. We're not here to see if I spell a word incorrect. We want you to write how you feel. And I need to say this. When we started off with them, the topic was poetry in Trinidad music. Well, you're promoting Trinidad music, that is what they like. That is what they know. So we start from a place that they know. And they started to call out all the different lines that rhyme and have literary devices. We say, okay, come up with now your own rhymes. We say rhyme, eh? Make up your own rhymes. Here what they put as rhymes. My gun long like a mop stick. No, we know that's not a rhyme. But here what they say, my gun long like a mop stick. I squeeze any trigger like I squeeze an orange. I say, all right, hold on. I say, all right. You know that. You're comfortable with that. I want you to challenge yourself and come out of that comfort zone and try something different. If you will permit me, I want to read one of the poems that the young men wrote. If you will permit me.
No, please, go on. Yeah, I'd like to hear this.
Now, after talking about how my gun long like a mop stick and I squeeze any trigger like an orange, money causes corruption, worldwide destruction. Everybody wants to rule the world, selling their souls for plastic and pearls, human trafficking, child prostitution. No one wants to start the revolution, blinded by the greed for money. All this makes me erupt like a volcano, while the 1% laugh as if it's funny. Nothing is free. It's all for money. Like bees, we all hunt for honey, hiding in a real-life monopoly. They put us in a rat race and lie to our face. The greed they have created is such a disgrace. You asked me to write this? I hope it's enough. I tried my best, and I don't settle for less. My gun long like a mopstick and I squeeze that trigger like an orange. What should I do, right?
This is one of the young men in your program.
Well, and we did the work. I won day. And when I say I won day, 2 hours, 10 to 12 in YTRC, 2 hours.
So this is a young man in YTRC as we speak.
Yes. Here a young girl. Now this one a little different, but see if you can pick up the subliminal messages she sent out in this poem. She wrote a love letter to food. Dear food, oh how I love you so. When I'm hungry, you make me feel so good. I never want to lose you because you are my Caribbean food. You're my Caribbean goods. You make my tummy get butterflies. Even when I'm asleep, you tickle my nose from a mile. When mommy used to tell me, no supper, my heart would have just shattered. If food wasn't something on God's plate, I feel like my destiny would have never been fate. There are some people that don't get to taste, but I promise you all, but I promise you, all they have to do is have a little faith. You come in big packages, sometimes small, but when you come, you make me want more. You're like my yin to my yang. You like my stars to my sky. You like my shine to my sun. You are the beat to my heart, the blood vessels in my body. Most importantly, you're the lifeline when I'm dying. There's nothing we can do without you. And that's why your name is food.
Wow.
This is St. Jude School for Girls. Again, 2 hours, 10 to 12. 2 hours, 10 to 12.
2 hours, which is not a lot of time.
With a class of 20 plus students.
Brings out a lot.
Everybody wrote, but I can't read all the poems today. Everyone wrote. Everyone.
Wow. Mr. Salawazi, I mean, I thank you very much for what you do, but I think 2 hours is not a lot of time at all. You brought out, you brought out like a sense of truth and being. And even as you said, it's subtle messages, but speaking about food. Yeah. And you know, and in all these things, a lot of people think when I have to do spoken word, nobody thinks about doing something uncharacteristic like a love letter to food, but it's amazing messages coming out of that.
Just some people don't get to taste it. Yeah. Right in this country, some people hungry, literally hungry, and she said that. You know. Yeah. So it's about giving them, because we made them feel a part of our organization, because they're already in an institution. Whatever you want to label it as, it's not a prison, but they are restricted in their movements, right? And there we came into their space and made them feel, hey, you are now part of Roots Foundation, which is something outside of the institution. So everybody wrote and they were so happy and come back again, come back. You know, everyone. There was one young man up there. He had his head down all the time. I went to him and said, are you okay? Yes. No, just like shrug a little bit. I said, you want water to drink? No. So I gave him the paper and the pen. I said, you need to write something. And he drew something. And I said, hey, very good. Because not all of us could write.
Yeah.
You hosting this show, there's somebody in the technical room, you know.
Yeah, I can't do it.
Oh!
I can't do it. I can't. In fact, I'm in awe and amazed at times when I see how these guys work. It's amazing.
So
which is why when you said he drew something.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
And put his name. I said, very good. I give him a bongs. Because again, you have to reward them. And people feel reward is always money. Hey, all of the business people outside, they money important. They only know money important. But reward is not always money. A bongs. I give that people a bongs. And he smiled. Because you know why? he know what I mean.
Yeah.
He know what fist up touch, you know? That mean, yeah, boy. No? Yeah. I really trying to say it's one of we.
Well, Mr. Solwazi, listen, you said it yourself. There's a lot of this that we can't expel in just one program. So I think I'm going to have to bring you back later on this week because relating to them is a huge part of rehabilitation. But apart from that, you spoke about even the police and how police are now building trust and how those relationships in itself are helping the cause. So we're gonna have to pause it. But I'll tell you what, you're gonna have to bring another 2 spoken word poems or even that drawing from that young man with you when you come back on later this week to continue this conversation. Yeah.
No
so
problem.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining me on the program this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
All the very best. Take care.
Same to you.
I think, ladies and gentlemen, in having the opportunity to have this discussion, you always have an expectation of the answers. You always have an expectation of this is what's coming because of what you've grown so accustomed to hearing and learning. And this interview just blew my mind this morning. This interview really blew all those expectations out of the water because it spoke to relating to these young people, to understanding what they know, to understanding what they've learned, to understanding what they realize, but translating that into something positive. Understanding and recognizing their potential and what they have within them, giving them that understanding that their voice is not lost, that their voices are heard. And look at those 2 spoken word poems. And by the way, something just, Mr. Solwazi told the individual, you have to write something, and he drew something. And Mr. Solwazi gave it a bounce. Many teachers will frown upon that. You're not following instructions, you're not listening, you're not doing that. Maybe that in itself is where we need to start understanding and realizing one size doesn't fit all. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to my guests for joining me this morning, and thank you, the viewer, for making AM Prime what it is. I've been getting messages, I've been receiving emails, people sending in their thoughts, people sending in constructive criticism. Please continue to send it in. You can email us at amprimewesn@gmail.com. It's amprimewesn@gmail.com. Reach out to us. Tell us what you think. Let me hear your thoughts and opinions. And who knows, you may end up alongside me on this program to have a discussion. Everyone has a voice and everyone should be heard. So please contact us at amprimewesn@gmail.com, or you can just call us at WESN 628-5835. Reach out to us, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much to my dream team in Milewood, and of course the substitute, Mr. Joash Alexander. Not really a substitute, by the way. He's really behind the doors in every aspect of WSN, making sure that we are who we are. To the entire team at WSN, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Keaton Shaw. Today is a good day to have a good day, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Slip-ups, and you could tell the age was still sort of getting to him, even though he did perform pretty well. It was really time for that handoff of the baton. As he said, he saw himself as a bridge to the future, but I don't think he would have run again if Trump were not running. I think he thinks Trump is a mortal threat. I think all of the Democrats made that clear last night, and that's going to be the message going forward, as well as trying to get people to know and understand who Kamala Harris is and what she stands for.
Let's talk about Kamala Harris for a second, because before Biden dropped out of the race, pundits on U.S. television channels said putting Kamala Harris on the ticket would be a grave mistake. I know she hasn't given many interviews or any interviews since she took on that mantle, but her positioning herself as a prosecutor taking on the felon seems to have resonated.
It really has. I think a lot of this so far, at least the honeymoon period that we're having with the voters, particularly young voters and voters of color, that's where we've seen the biggest shift, and that's where Biden was losing the most, are really excited about her. I don't know that it's necessarily the prosecutor thing, but they're certainly leaning into that because there are two major weaknesses that Kamala Harris has, and that is immigration and crime. They can sort of thwart that by talking about the fact that she was a prosecutor and play that up. And they're putting together a bunch of messages on immigration. That's the other real weak Achilles heel that she has that they're going to try to get out in front of and message on.
What about Donald Trump? Because when it was him against Joe Biden, you know, this election was his to lose. But things have changed over the past month. Besides him trying to mispronounce Kamala Harris's name, questioning her identity, it seems like he's faltering.
Absolutely. This has really put Donald Trump back on his heels. He's in a place where he never expected to be coming out of the Republican convention. They had all the signs made, they had all the ads made, and it was just time to unroll it and cruise to victory. But now Donald Trump, like I said, he doesn't know exactly how to combat Harris and Walz, and he's trying to find a way, and nothing's really working so far. It probably didn't help him that after he picked J.D. Vance, he sent Vance around to the swing states and stayed in Mar-a-Lago. He probably should have been out there and trying to get some of that shine, the media glare back on him. He's trying to do it now with the counter-programming, but that's a hard thing to do with all the media in Chicago.
Exactly, and we also have, you know, the Democrats who have abortion as their rallying cry, essentially, in this election. And then you have J.D. Vance, his vice presidential pick, who's going after a single women who don't have children. It seems like they're not trying to get women on board, just alienating them further.
It really seems that way. I mean, some of the things that J.D. Vance has said about women have really come back to haunt him. And it's just, you know, Donald Trump took credit for the abortion overturning of Roe v. Wade with the 3 justices he appointed. Now he wants to have it both ways. He wants to say leave it up to the states. But we're seeing the states move in ways that are not very popular, including even moving into in vitro fertilization. And both Trump and Vance are having really difficult time messaging on this. But Trump's never really been one to try to expand his coalition too much. Trump is Trump, and he will continue doing what he does. I don't think that's going to work very well with him this time.
I know we just only had one day of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, but it seems that the Democrats are positioning this election as one of hope, looking to the future, to what America can be, the best of America. And it seems that Donald Trump it's versus hope and a very dark reality. Is that a fair assessment?
I think that's a real fair assessment. I think you can also throw the Biden campaign in there, because when it was Biden and Trump, they were just attacking one another and how bad everything was under each other's administration. Now you have someone who's trying to disentangle herself from the Biden administration, but taking the good and leaving the bad. That's Kamala Harris, of course. And they're trying to turn the page. They're trying to give people something to vote for and not just against. After all, elections are about the future, and you can't beat something with nothing.
Exactly, and she has the age clearly on her side, and she's the younger candidate in this race. Todd Belt, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
In other news, Ukraine continues its incursion into the Russian region of Kursk. According to Kyiv, it controls more than 1,000 square kilometers of Russian land. But the offensive is slowing, with the Russians putting up more of a fight and using drones to try to stop Ukrainians getting supplies in. But Ukraine's attacks on key bridges in the area complicate Russia's logistics too. Gulliver Cragg went to gauge how soldiers and civilians in the border region of Sumy were reacting.
At a pit stop on the road between Sumy and the border, these men are waiting for their ride into Russia and planning their next moves. Alexander insists that despite his injury sustained in Kursk region a few days ago, he's still an asset to Ukraine's offensive there. These men, meanwhile, have just returned from an aborted mission to try to get supplies through.
Today was one of the toughest yet, but we are all alive, so that's good.
Despite the difficulties, they say they're still confident Ukraine can hold on to the territory it's occupied inside Russia.
They will try to force us out, but seeing how much equipment Ukraine keeps pouring in, they're going to have to amass a truly huge force if they want to succeed.
One of the officially announced goals of the operation in Kursk region was to create a buffer zone to protect Ukrainian civilians on this side of the border from Russian artillery fire. But in these villages, the authorities are still recommending that people evacuate.
If they used to fire more often, but with mortars or artillery, now when they fire it's a glide bomb, or 2 or 3, go to Kindrativka, you'll see the devastation they cause.
Kindrativka is a village just 3 kilometers from the Russian border. There we met these men trying to salvage grain from the rubble. Their barn was bombed last week.
Чи ви думаєте, що ви будете спокійніше чи менше спокійне зараз?
They're already firing less. They've been pushed away, and for us things are better.
The real positive effects of the Kursk offensive are to be felt not in these border villages, though, but deeper inside Ukraine, where it has renewed confidence in the country's armed forces and their ability to take the initiative.
Ukraine has begun evacuating a region of Donetsk close to where Russian troops have made advances in recent days. Russia is close to taking the city of Provorsk, an important strategic hub for Ukraine in the east of the country. Oliver Farry found this report.
Residents of Pokrovsk flee the city as Russian troops advance. Authorities in the eastern Ukrainian city ordered it to be evacuated on Monday. As they departed, locals described a situation where the bombardment of the front just a few miles away had them constantly on edge.
It's really frightening, impossible to sleep at night. They're in the air all the time. Today when we were leaving, there were hits and interceptions in the air. It was terrifying. We barely got out.
The situation is difficult, very difficult. And it's gotten especially bad over the past week and a half. It became more difficult. There are constant explosions. During the night, it's sometimes quiet, but sometimes extremely loud.
Pokrovsk is one of Ukraine's main defensive strongholds and a key logistics hub in the Donetsk region. Capturing it would bring Russia closer to its stated aim of controlling the entire region, Ukraine's industrial heartland, which it has illegally annexed. Moscow has slowly advanced across Donetsk over the past 6 months, losing a lot of troops and material in the process. But it has eventually paid off as Ukrainian troops have been forced to withdraw. Ukraine's recent incursion into Russia in Kursk further north was partly intended to disrupt Russia's supply lines, but also to force Moscow to spread its resources more thinly in Ukraine's eastern regions.
More than 6 weeks after legislative elections in France, the country still has no new government. The vote delivered a hung parliament with the left-wing coalition, the New Popular Front, coming in first place. As President Macron prepares to name a new prime minister, that coalition is showing signs of internal divisions, with the far left, France Unbowed Party, calling for impeachment proceedings against the president if he refuses to name a prime minister from the winning bloc. Brian Quinn filed this report.
The Olympics truce in French politics is over. The business of finding a new prime minister is back on the front burner, and France's left-wing parties, victors of July's legislative elections, are once again struggling to find unity. On Sunday, leaders of France Unbowed, one of the leftmost parties of the New Popular Front, published an op-ed threatening impeachment proceedings against President Emmanuel Macron if he refuses to name a prime minister from among the winning bloc.
Emmanuel Macron is reportedly about to name a prime minister with no regard for the results of elections which he lost. He should know that rather than accept this, we will use all constitutional means to oust him.
The New Popular Front came in ahead of both Macron's centrist Ensemble coalition, which lost some 90 seats, and the far-right National Rally. The left-wing bloc has put forth economist Lucie Castet from the centre-left Socialist Party for prime minister. She says ousting Macron is not on her agenda.
My plan is not impeachment, it's power sharing. We've known the election results for nearly 2 months now, and we're still under a caretaker government.
Macron, meanwhile, is none too keen to have a prime minister from the left in office as he seeks budget cuts this fall to get France's ballooning deficits under control. He's trying to cobble together a new minority coalition, in part by breaking more centrist socialists away from the New Popular Front to team up with center-right parties. The president has invited leaders of parties and parliamentary groups to the Élysée Palace this Friday as the country continues to wait for a new government.
Brian Quinn there with that report. Now, 2 wildfires in southern France that forced the evacuation of thousands of people and destroyed hundreds of hectares of land have been brought under control. Hundreds of firefighters were mobilized to tame the flames. As of Monday evening, 6 departments were on orange alert for wildfires. Vedika Behel has this report.
Seen here from the sky, the 350 hectares of pine forest ravaged by flames in the coastal town of Frontignan. After breaking out Sunday afternoon, 600 firefighters were dispatched to the scene. But despite controlling the blaze, they couldn't save this house, where Sandra has lived for 11 years.
All my work, all my family photos. It's a disaster.
Around half the firefighters are expected to stay in the area to work on the site should another blaze ensue. But it's not the only southern French region struck by wildfires. Further down the Mediterranean coast, in Canet-en-Rouisson, a fire fanned by strong winds forced 3,000 holidaymakers to evacuate a campsite in the middle of the night. In the morning, one owner came to see the damage, but this is all that's left of her mobile home. Though she wasn't present while the fire broke out, she was hosting 2 people who are luckily safe and sound.
I wasn't worried about the house. I was thinking about the tenants. They're doing okay, so I feel reassured.
Despite 11 minor injuries, 2,500 holidaymakers were able to return to the campsite. Some 20 kilometers away in Argelès-sur-Mer, the wildfire risk has been classed as extreme, so firefighters have been stationed in the most sensitive areas.
We've got the recipe today for a fire to grow quickly, especially with the temperature, the water level and the drought. So we're here so we can intervene as fast as possible.
According to the French Interior Minister, this season has seen fewer forest fires than last year, with around 4,000 hectares burnt since the season started compared to 12,000 at the same time in 2023.
Now, specialist divers off the coast of Sicily continue to look for 6 people missing after a yacht sank early on Monday. The British-flagged vessel was anchored some 700 meters from the port of Porticello and was struck by a water spout, which is a kind of mini tornado. The yacht had 22 people on board, including 10 crew members. British tech tycoon Mike Lynch and his 18-year-old daughter remain missing. On Monday, 1 person was confirmed dead. French footballer Kylian Mbappe is pursuing his former club Paris Saint-Germain for 55 million euros in unpaid dues. It comes almost 2 months after the end of his contract there. The matter has now been referred to the French Professional Football League and to UEFA. If PSG is found guilty, the Parisian club could be heavily sanctioned by FIFA. Olivia Salazar-Winspear reports.
Goodbyes are never easy, but this one is proving to be particularly tricky. The dispute between Kylian Mbappe and his former club Paris Saint-Germain has moved up a gear as the player pursues legal action for the 55 million euros they owe him from the final months of his salary, as well as other bonuses which could total around 100 million euros. After 7 years at the club, Mbappe moved to Real Madrid this summer, yet disagreements around the circumstances of his departure pitted the star player against PSG's management and its main shareholder, Qatar Sports Investments, who withheld payments from the French team captain. Amid rumours of his discontent at the time, Mbappe posted a goodbye video thanking his fellow PSG players, employees at the Parc des Princes, and above all, his fans for their loyalty and support.
C'est difficile et bien sûr, il y a des gens que je voudrais remercier par-dessus tout, c'est les supporters.
Yet there was no tribute to the club's directors or owners. The litigation has now been passed on to France's Professional Football League, according to newspaper Le Monde. Mbappe's lawyers have said they're also prepared to go to an industrial tribunal if there's no resolution from sports governing bodies. PSG maintain that their financial actions were justified and confirm that negotiations are ongoing with Mbappe and his representatives.
Now, a rare occurrence was visible overnight. No, it wasn't a blue moon, but a blue supermoon. It takes place at this time of year when the moon is closest to Earth. According to NASA, a blue moon happens once every 2 to 3 years, but a blue moon that's also a supermoon is even more uncommon. That's it for this edition of Paris Direct. Thank you very much for watching.
I'm Dave Keating, and I bring you all the latest news from Europe's capital, Brussels, Belgium, from here at European Union summits to NATO meetings strategizing Europe's defense, here on France 24.
Dave Keating, one of the 200 France 24 correspondents around the world.
The latest developments from a continent that's constantly changing. Daily reports, interviews with influential newsmakers and personalities, analysis from our journalists in the studio, all the news from Africa. Watch Eye on Africa, presented by Georgia Calvin-Smith on France 24 and France24.com.
France 24, every art form.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.
I'm Rochelle Harrison-Pless in Sydney. Whether it's an environmental story, business feature or breaking news, I report on the stories that matter from across Australia and New Zealand here on France 24.
Rochelle Harrison-Pless, one of the 200 France 24 correspondents around the world.
Thank you for joining us here on Paris Direct. I'm Delano de Souza. The headlines this hour. Anthony Blinken continues his tour of the Middle East to secure a truce. This as the Israeli army announces it's recovered 6 bodies overnight from Gaza. Joe Biden passes the baton to Kamala Harris on day 1 of the Democratic National Convention. The U.S. president, who recently ended his re-election bid, told America he gave it his best. And authorities in Kyiv claim Russian forces are pressing hard in eastern Ukraine. It comes as Ukrainian troops continue their incursion of Kursk. The Israeli army says it's recovered the bodies of 6 hostages from Gaza. The military claims it's identified the remains of the deceased, who were aged between 35 to 80. They are believed to be over 100 hostages still being held inside the enclave. Health officials in Gaza, meanwhile, have announced that nearly 40,200 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since October. Earlier, I spoke to our correspondent Iris Mackler in Jerusalem and asked her if the developments out of Gaza will ramp up pressure to secure a ceasefire.
We have heard from many in this right-wing government who are opposed to a hostage deal. And one of the arguments is that the only way to bring back hostages is actually to defeat Hamas, or that the Israeli military will rescue hostages. But what we've seen is that the only hostages rescued alive, 7 of them, were held above ground. All the other hostages who are held beneath ground, in the tunnels there, are not rescued alive. You do see what we saw today, which is a retrieval of bodies, not a rescue of living hostages. The daughter of one